Okay, hello everybody. Today I'm going to do a little bit of a special video for you guys. I will be talking about my latest track called Black Orion, and I'll be walking through each and every separate component, instrument that I've used on this track to give you guys a little bit of insight what's happening when I'm making music in the studio. So I have a couple of cameras hooked up, one on the left hand side over here and one on the top. And also have this handheld device. This is basically just a cell phone, and hopefully I will be able to capture some close-ups of the things that's going on here on the table that can't be seen from the other angle. So this might be a little bit shaky, so apologies in advance for that, and let's get started. Okay, so the main components of the track, I'm working it in 113 BPM. I have the drum section going on in the Electron Digitat, and also that's accompanied by a couple of percussion stuff from the TR-8. The Digitac handles the kick drum, and also sort of a rim shot kind of sound. And then I have a dubby chord. And as you can hear, there's a little bit of an LFO going on there with the filter, right? So I'm basically just sending that just a little bit here, as you can see, to the filter. So it kind of, moves all by itself, right? And that creates some extra, textures and stuff like that when the hits are coming in on a regular basis. And then I also have the secondary chord. I'm not really doing anything with that in terms of modulation, and then a simple hi-hat. So what it sounds like is this. Let's try to do this. And I also have a closed hi-hat and a rim shot going on in the TR-8, adding on top. Pretty nice, huh? All right. The main bass, or the low-end bass, I should rather say, is the KORG Volca bass, and it's basically just basically just doing a low-end note. And what I'm doing here is that I have a little bit of LFO turned on here. Quite high intensity that sort of modulates the filter. And adding to this, since the KORG Volca bass through the MX400 is connected to the external in on the TR-8, I'm actually adding some sidechaining on the bass as well. So for each hit on 1, 5, 9 and 13, it will actually pump down the bass. That gives it a little bit of a breathability, and also at the same time helps with mixing, right? Because the bass hits will actually conflict with the kick drum. There you go. Okay, adding to this, I also have the Avalon Bassline on top of this. Let me just turn off some drums here. There we go. It's a really simple bass line. Combining that let's turn on some of this stuff here. And for the drums as well, I have a sort of a little bit of a fill, and I'm accomplishing that by using the scatter function set to number 1 there. And this basically just affects the rim shot. So whenever I press, it will give like a double hit. Sounds like this. So it's kind of nice for build-ups and changes with the beats and so on. Okay, what else do we have here? Obviously we have the good old volca keys. Volca keys. Important part of the volca key sound is to work the filter when you're playing it, right? So you're opening it up. And the effects that I'm using together with the volca, I probably can't see that here because the display is a little bit too bright. But I have one of the Zoom pedals using the particle reverb algorithm together with the carbon delay on the sound. So it gives that airy, kind of really long tail on the sound, which is nice and I like. And this one as well at the same time goes through the TR-8 external inputs, and that's also being affected by the sidechaining. Okay. And also I have the third volca, another volca bass, where I have a little bit of a small phrase only that's playing with a really high intensity, a slow LFO rate, which kicks it in only a couple of times. Right. This gives this kind of ambience in the background, which is nice, and it kind of pops up a little bit here and a little bit there, not all the time. And that's the beauty of having really long LFO rate to actually bring it in and bring it out without actually having to touch the unit. And on the Zoom MS-70, I have a silky chorus effect together with ice delay, and also a modulation reverb. So it's 3 effects on this one. It gives it this real shimmery kind of ambient effect going on, which is really cool. Okay, so let's have a listen at all of those components at the same time. Okay, and also I have the KORG KOSS pad, where I have a couple of one-shot samples, not one-shot, they're actually looped in the device. So together with some, let me just turn this one off, together with some granular delay, particularly recorded, like a motion recorded on this one, it adds some background ambience. Now, listening to this sound, it's not that particularly interesting by itself now, is it? But the beauty of having an ambient, sort of a tinkle sound in the background is that you just keep it below, so you barely can hear it, and that adds some extra textures and granularity in the background of the track to help build some motion. So let's have a listen. As you can hear, this is particularly nice when we're having sort of a breakdown or, you know, building down the beat to get some ambience. Also some one-shot samples, voices are in there. And that helps to add to the mysterious kind of, you know, haunting feeling of the tune, which I'm trying to achieve here. All right. So we talked about the drums, we talked about the bass, we talked about the KORG volcas and the KOSS pad, one-shot effects. The part that we haven't covered yet is the analog 4. Now the analog 4 isn't really used on this track, only using it as a sequencer for the zero coast. And the zero coast is basically just taking care of a simple, kind of a quick sequence, and I can play this here all by itself. The zero coast is being treated by some effects in the analog 4, and they're basically just adding some reverb and delay from the analog 4. And the good thing is that you could, but I haven't done on this track, because you actually automate the effects chain, right? Like adding and pushing in and out the effects to give some reverb washes and stuff like that on the track. So that's really nice. So just as an effects unit, it's actually super versatile. And given that it has two inputs, you can actually use two instruments. And I have the Avalon bassline on the second channel with just a little bit of reverb added on top to give that little bit of an ambient feeling to the bass sound. Okay, so I think that I covered the majority of the stuff on this side. So next up, I will be talking about the modular, and for that I will have to rig the cameras, and yeah, we'll be back in a little bit. Okay, so here we have the modular section of my studio, and for this track I have three sounds going on. I have a bass sound in the braids, and it's basically, I don't know what this actual waveform is, but you probably can read that up yourselves. Sort of a kind of a square mixed with sawtooth and triangle, and there's a quite significant amount of modulation going on here. The Pamela's workout, is sending modulation to both the color and the timbre input, which actually changes the character of the sound quite significantly. And also the Pamela is sending an LFO to the filter, which basically modulates the cutoff, and opens it up and closes it down. That gives it a little bit of a movement, right? And the braids is also being sequenced by the Beatstep Pro. Now, I have a fair amount of randomness and probability. I think it's turned up to 50 or something, 50 and 44, which more or less gives the sequence quite random nature, right? So it doesn't really repeat itself that often. And that's pretty cool for this type of track, because you can keep it going and you don't really have to think about, it having to, it doesn't really become that static, is what I want to say. Okay, so, and also, just to let you guys know, the Digitact is controlling the modular over this 1U tile MIDI interface from IntelliGel. Basically gets it clock. The clock is then being shared to the PAM, and also stops and starts the PAMler whenever I hit the Digitact. Right, so let's have a listen at the bass. You can hear it morphing between square and sawtooth and triangle, right? And also, the braids is being, I have the space echo from Boss connected to the braids. So it gives it sort of a old school classic tape delay type of sound, together with a little bit of a spring tank as well on top for that old school type of feeling. And that's really nice. And the second sound I have is from the Basilemus Iteritas Alter. What I'm doing here is that I'm doing some percussion and triggering those with the external outputs from the Beatstep Pro. Let's have a listen to that. As you can hear, it's pretty random as well, right? So since that is also being affected by the randomness settings in the Beatstep Pro, the hits doesn't really come at the same time, right? So this is really good for the polyrhythmic patterns and randomness of the actual beats of the track, which actually allows me to not have to really worry about tweaking the drums that much, because they keep on evolving as the track moves along. Okay. The final sound I have in the modular is rings. This is being really heavily modulated by the PAM. As you can see, I have one cable going into basically almost each and every one of the jacks, right? All except the volt per octave input. And what I'm doing here is that with the PAM, I'm sending LFOs, modulation, with different speed and different divisions from the PAM to actually have the sound more or less evolve infinitely, right? So let's have a listen and see how that sounds out. First, without the PAM. Quite boring, huh? And when I enable the PAM by sending the clock from the Digitact, that's really nice. Yeah. Okay. Now, obviously this sound is more like of an ambient background sound, so you wouldn't be hearing it in the front of the mix. And just to give you an idea how the sounds sound in the actual track, I'm just going to start up with some kick drums and whatnots over here and have that. Okay, the Bassilimus Iteritus alter also is being routed through the Space Echo, and the Rings pedal is currently being routed through the Caverns, adding a little bit of reverb and delay just for that extra shiny shimmer. The Earthquaker pedals on this track is not currently in use. Alright, I think that's it. Not sure if I missed anything. If you should have any questions, just go ahead and, ask in the comments below, and I'll, try to help out and answer those for you. Thank you very much, and don't forget to subscribe, and also please consider supporting me over at Patreon. Thank you very much. Have a good day. See you soon. BURG out.